Hi there guys, Vino here and welcome to this Vino Plonk production, and in this video I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions and, if you will, my review on the 2018 film Halloween. We've now had 3 different films that are called just Halloween, set in the same universe. I'm going to get up the film on my phone on IMDb because I do like to give you what the internet at large thinks of the film, and then we'll get into my own personal opinions of the film, and then we'll go from there. So here we go. Halloween 2018. It's loading up. Fine. Okay, so it got a 6.5% rating on IMDb. I'm trying to find its Rotten Tomatoes score, which normally is IMDb, but I think on this occasion it's not. Directed by David Gordon Green, and of course starring Jamie Lee Curtis, as well as many other actresses, including some from the original 1978 film other than Jamie Lee Curtis, including the person who stars as one of the police officers. I'm trying to look for his name right now, but it's not finding it, and I don't want to take too much time. Somebody in the comments is gonna point it out. I've actually completely forgotten. Anyway, one of the officers that stars in this film is the same actor that was in it back in 1978, which I like the little connection there, apart from Jamie Lee Curtis playing Laurie Strode. So, straight up, this film really feels to me like a remake, but not in a good way. So, the term requel has been said quite often. This is a requel, basically. This is a redone sequel. So this takes place straight after the events, not straight after, 40 years after the events of the original Halloween 1978 film, and does away with a lot of the sibling subplot that's going on, and kind of takes away that stuff and just makes Michael Myers out to just be a ruthless supernatural serial killer. There's a reason I'm doing the air quotes, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, later Halloween films such as The Curse of Michael Myers, I think is the biggest example, do heavily more go into the fact that Michael Myers is not human. He's actually some kind of entity that can't die, basically, and we'll touch upon that in this film because there are some elements we get to in this film. So we are introduced to Michael Myers at the beginning. There's 2 British journalists that go to see him in the mental asylum to basically try and get him to talk. He won't talk. Basically, they try and get a response out of him. He's not talking to anybody. They then go to see Laurie Strode and basically give her $3,000 in order to have the interview. She gives barely anything. They try and push her buttons and don't really get anything from that. You then begin to see the effect that fateful 3 nights, I think it was actually, had on Laurie Strode way back 40 years ago. We then cut to Laurie Strode's estranged family. She's estranged from them, basically, which is her daughter, Karen, and Karen's daughter, i.e. Laurie Strode's granddaughter, Alison. Essentially, and we cut to them, and we can definitely tell there is an estrangement, a separation, a gap, a chasm between, obviously, Karen, who is Laurie's daughter, and the granddaughter. The granddaughter, Alison, and Laurie seem to be far closer than the mother, Karen, and Laurie. However, even the granddaughter does ask a couple of difficult questions to her grandmother, and sort of say, why can't you let it go? Why can't you just, As the film goes on, we kind of get a bit of a picture of what Karen's upbringing was like, and she was actually taken away from Laurie when she was 12 years old because basically Laurie was a neglectful parent. Turns out maybe neglectful is a bit of a harsh word. She was basically preparing Karen for for Michael Myers, basically, that one day that Michael Myers was going to come back. Laurie always knew this. He was going to come back one day, escape from the mental asylum, and wreak havoc on the town of Haddonfield once again. So she prepared her daughter for this, and as a result of that preparation, I suppose the authorities basically took Karen away from Laurie, essentially. As the early part of the film is quite slow, I will say that, but as the early part of the film sort of plods along, we do get a very strong indication that Laurie is not exactly welcome in Karen's life, and there's definitely that estrangement there, and there are times where she's a bit out of it. She's not exactly, we know she's not exactly there, but obviously that really does clash with the family in a very big way. So we now roll on to the inevitable, I suppose, is that Michael Myers is being transferred from one mental institute to another mental institute, where basically it's a far worse mental institute. There's not as many people keep an eye on people, and people apparently die there, and all sorts of weird stuff, bad stuff happens in that mental institution. And he's being transferred at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, and the bus ends up crashing, and lo and behold, Michael Myers ends up escaping. He kills a police officer and a police officer's son. He then drives into Haddonfield. He then eventually catches up to the two British journalists, the one that taunted him with the mask. I didn't say that earlier. The male British journalist was taunting Michael Myers with the mask. Basically, he then savagely kills both of them, and they then go to a little gas station, petrol station, whatever you call it, and then realise that he's also disfigured, brutally murdered a bunch of other people at the gas station / petrol station, and he brutally murders the two journalists, and that's when he gets the mask back. Basically, he opens up the boot of the car where the two journalists have put the mask, and he puts the mask back on, and he's back to being Michael Myers. He has the blue border suit, and he's back to being Michael Myers, and then basically sets out to start killing as many people as he can. So one thing I will say about this film when it comes to the cinematography, the music is done really well. Actually, they've still used the same track that was used back in 1978, composed by John Carpenter himself. Obviously, two moments. However, there is a remixed version. It seems to be a, remastered or rejuvenated version. In some ways, it sounds a bit clearer, a bit snappier than the original. But as the movie goes on, there are remixed versions of the theme tune. The you know the theme tune. Probably did a really bad rendition there, but anyway. And it even extends into some like soft rock kind of kind of ambiatic, that's a word, rock at some point during the movie. And I really like the stings that they use. Anytime Michael Myers is around, like, there's like a sting. What I mean by sting, there's like a little part of the theme tune plays whenever he's on screen, which is really effective. The first time you see Michael Myers in Haddonfield, he bumps into a couple of kids, which is very reminiscent of Halloween 2, I believe it is, when he bumps into a kid with like a boombox on his shoulder. And then as you pan up to the mask, the theme tune kicks in. There's a part where he walks up to a house, he peers through the window, you see his reflection in the window. Again, the theme tune kind of plays there. I think that's really effective, and of course Jaws has done it, the Friday the 13th movies have done it. Whenever the killer is on screen, or around screen I should say, there is the theme tune plays, and there is a very well. A lot of people may think it's a cliche. A lot of people may think that it's a bit tacky in some ways. You can always tell when Michael Myers is around, but I think it kind of adds, because again, you know he's around, you just know where he is. Much like later on, Vicky, one of Alison's friends, is babysitting Julian, and Julian thinks the boogeyman is around, which obviously is the nickname that Michael Myers is often given. And she's like, "Oh, you're being silly." Basically, goes into the room, and there's nothing there. She kind of jokes around with Julian. However, the music says otherwise, and I think that's really well done. That she's sort of joking around with Julian, going, "Oh, there's nobody here. You're being a bit silly. You're being paranoid. Stop it," kind of thing. But the music stays sort of somber and serious, and you know he's around. You know he's around. You just don't know where. And then she opens up the cupboard and he attacks Vicky and kills her. So let's get to the kills, shall we? So I think this movie is an amalgamation of the original 1978 and its sequel, I would say, and the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. Some people aren't going to be very appreciative of me referencing the Rob Zombie movies, but they are good in their own right. They are very brutal depictions of Michael Myers, Halloween, all that kind of stuff, of that genre, that universe, if you will. And I will say that the kills in this movie are far more brutal than the original, so I sort of think it's an amalgamation of those. And there's so much fan service in this movie, much like when Vicky's killed, Michael Myers puts a ghost kind of sheet with the holes cut out, a bed sheet, holes cut out over her. Again, that is a very strong callback to the original movie. I've already mentioned when Michael Myers bumps into the two kids. That's a very big callback to the original movie, or the second movie, Halloween 2. There are a lot of callbacks, a lot of not scene by scene sort of recaptures, but there's a lot of callbacks to the original movies. You can watch this on its own, absolutely. You don't have to have watched the original, but I do highly recommend you watch the original, just because it's a really, really good film. Take it from somebody who wasn't a massive horror film or slasher film fan before I watched the first Halloween film, and have absolutely fell in love with it. This really does play into the whole kind of requel, redone sequel kind of thing. As the film goes on, I'm sure this is to be expected. Michael Myers works his way through a lot of Alison's friends, much like the original. He made his way through a lot of Laurie Strode's friends. He was nicknamed the babysitter killer. In this one, he just works his way through all of Alison's friends. Again, it does seem a bit random, his violence, I suppose, whereas in the first film it seemed a bit more specifically directed to him going after Laurie Strode, because there was at the time that sibling connection between the two. That's now been retconned, whereas it seems a little bit more random if you don't know the original and what the sequel then came and the lore that it introduced, why he's sort of going through all of Alison's friends. I think that's just another callback. I think that's just a weird another callback that obviously 40 years ago he went through all of Laurie's friends, and this time he's going through all of her daughter's friends. Having said that, there is still collateral damage. At the end, when Alison does her final girl runaround, which is a cliche for especially slasher films, we find out that most people in the town of Haddonfield have been killed by Michael Myers in various ways. A lot of those you see, a lot of them you don't. I do really enjoy the kills. I have been told by a friend that the kills in the second one of the trilogy, Halloween Kills, 2 Moments, they're a lot more brutal and kind of to look forward to. So we then come to the end of the movie. We've got Karen, Alison and Laurie in Laurie's house. She's rigged the house up, basically ready for Michael Myers. She's got like bulkhead doors or shutters that close down. She's got like guns stashed everywhere. She's got like a counter that rotates where there's a secret basement underneath. And she's also got the whole place booby trapped up, that at the, you know, the twist of a valve and the press of a button, the whole place goes up in flames. So what Karen realizes right at the end is when all three of the girls manage to get out of the basement, they trap Michael Myers in the basement, or Laurie traps him in the basement, and they set the whole house on fire to obviously get rid of him. Kind of spoilers, we know there's a second movie in the trilogy, Halloween Kills, so we know he doesn't die. But then I think that kind of adds to his supernatural nature, which we'll get to in a moment. But I will say I absolutely loved Laurie Strode towards the end, or Jamie Lee Curtis. Obviously, she was badass towards the end when Karen shoots Michael Myers in the head and seems to get him square there. By the way, she comes at him with a frying pan and a knife and gets some good stabs into him. So now we're going to move into sort of the more supernatural element of this. And I do absolutely believe throughout all the Halloween films, Michael Myers isn't just a human being, he's the embodiment of evil, pure evil, unrivaled, you know, concentrated evil, basically. And I think this film, as much as many in the franchise and the universe, really does depict that, because he is, you know, wounded mortally several occasions and just gets back up. There's a part where a police officer rams him down, and a doctor, his psychologist actually, goes to check on him and says he's dead. And yet when they put him in the back of the police car, he comes back alive later on. I've already spoken about the fact that Karen shoots him square on the head, yet he falls down the stairs, yet he gets back up. You know, I do believe that Laurie had got a good few stabs in some crucial places. That if you were a human being, you'd very quickly die from those injuries. Whereas Michael Myers does not seem to stop coming. So I really do think that, although it's not, you know, overt, especially not in this film, I do believe that Michael Myers does sort of represent, he's an analogy for just pure evil. He cannot die, you cannot kill him, he'll keep coming back again and again and again. And as the end of the movie kind of, you know, doesn't just suggest, but straight up shows you, Laurie has to burn down her whole house to try and get rid of him. And we know, because there's a sequel, that obviously he's still around. So that's been my opinions and talk through when it comes to Halloween. I really enjoyed this. I did watch the movie, the film, through the lens, knowing that it is part of a trilogy. And when it comes to a trilogy, the first in a trilogy isn't always the best. I've heard from the internet and from my friend Luke that the second film, Halloween Kills, is probably the best one, and not a lot of people enjoyed Halloween Ends for whatever reason. They didn't enjoy that, but I really enjoyed this movie. I'm rooting forward to watching Halloween Kills. I'm probably, we'll see how things go, going to be buying the Steelbook 4K trilogy box set from CX when I get paid next week. So I'll be able to rewatch them on 4K physical disc. I watched Halloween on Sky Cinema, on streaming, basically, and I'm probably going to be watching Halloween Kills on Apple TV Plus, if I can actually recover my account in order to do that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want a star rating or a rating from me, I don't really like ratings, but I know some people do like to have a rating to sort of, you know, gauge where they're at. I'd give this a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. I would say. I really enjoyed it. Kills were not really inventive per se, but quite brutal. To that matter, I like the use of the camera work. I like the use of the music, obviously, and I think the performances throughout were solid. Until next time, guys, please take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Ta-ra.